You walk into a room and forget why you came in. A name sits right on the tip of your tongue and won't come. You lose your keys again, and for a moment, a cold little thought crosses your mind. Is this how it starts? If you're over 60, that quiet fear about your memory may be one of the things you think about most and rarely say out loud. Here's what I want you to know tonight. Some of that forgetfulness is completely normal aging, but certain ordinary, everyday habits, things you may be doing right now without a second thought, may be silently aging your brain faster than the years alone ever could. And the single biggest one, the one almost nobody suspects, I've saved for the very end. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the everyday habits that speed up brain aging, one at a time, and then give you a simple plan to protect your mind that I call the sharp mind reset. But that final habit, the most overlooked and, thankfully, one of the most fixable, may be the most important thing you hear all year, so stay with me to the end. Before we begin, be honest with me in the comments. How many hours a day is your television on from morning to night? Just type the number. There's no judgment here, but that answer connects to one of the habits we're about to discuss, and you'll see why. First, a gentle but important word, because this subject frightens people, and fear helps no one. Some forgetting is a normal part of aging. Misplacing your glasses, blanking on a name, needing a list. That is not dementia. But if memory problems start to interfere with daily life, getting lost in familiar places, struggling with tasks you've done for years, repeating questions or changes in personality and judgment, please see your doctor and don't put it off. Here's the hopeful part most people never hear. Many causes of memory trouble are treatable and even reversible, from low vitamin B12 and thyroid problems to depression, poor sleep, and certain medications. A proper checkup can find those. And understand this clearly, nothing I share today is about blame or guilt, which the science says you truly can do. Everything here is general education, never a replacement for the doctor who knows you. I've spent more than 20 years caring for older adults and watching the fear of losing one's mind up close. And also watching how much power people actually have over it, far more than they're ever told. Stay with me, because this may be one of the most encouraging things you learn all year. Let me start with what's happening inside your head, because it changes how you see everything that follows. Your brain is not a machine that simply wears out on a fixed schedule. It is alive and adaptable, capable of forming new connections and even growing in certain ways well into old age. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, and it doesn't switch off at 60. Yes, the brain naturally shrinks a little with age, blood flow slows, and the connections between brain cells can fade if they're not used. But here's the concept that should give you real hope: cognitive reserve. Think of it as a savings account for your brain, a buffer of rich, well-worn connections built up through a lifetime of using, challenging, and caring for your mind. People with a deep reserve can withstand a great deal of aging, and even some disease before it ever shows, and that reserve is not fixed. You are adding to it or draining it every single day. Through the ordinary things you do, your habits are the deposits and the withdrawals. Researchers have found people whose brains showed heavy aging, or even disease, on examination. Yet who stayed sharp and present in life? Precisely because a lifetime of rich engagement had built them a deep reserve to draw on. In other words, two people the same age can have brains that behave decades apart, and much of that gap is built by daily living. The most important truth in this whole video is that it's rarely one dramatic thing that ages a brain. It's the quiet accumulation of small daily habits, repeated for years, each a tiny withdrawal that adds up. That is wonderful news because it means small daily changes, repeated the same way, add up just as powerfully in the other direction. So let's look at the withdrawals first, the everyday habits slowly draining the account, starting with one you may be doing right this minute as you watch. The first habit is sitting too much. A body that stops moving is a brain that starts fading, and the two are far more connected than most people realize. When you move, even a gentle walk, you pump more blood, and with it more oxygen and nutrients, up to your brain. Exercise also triggers the release of a remarkable substance, sometimes described as fertilizer for the brain, which helps grow and protect the very cells you use for memory and thinking. A sedentary life does the opposite. Less blood flow, fewer of those protective signals, and a brain slowly starved of the movement it depends on. And this is not about becoming an athlete. Study after study suggests that regular, moderate activity, a daily walk, gardening, light chores, a little dancing in the kitchen, is one of the single most powerful things you can do to protect your aging brain. If you take nothing else from this video, move your body most days. Even 20 to 30 minutes of walking is enough to matter. And break up long sitting. Every half hour or so, stand, stretch, or walk to another room, because it's the unbroken hours in the chair that do the harm. Add a little strength work and some balance practice when you can, since a strong, steady body is what keeps people moving for life. Long, motionless hours in the chair are one of the most overlooked ways to age your mind. The second habit is withdrawing from other people, and it's one of the most underestimated dangers of all. As we age, our worlds can shrink without our noticing. Friends pass away, family moves, hearing gets harder, driving at night gets scary, and slowly the phone calls and visits thin out until days pass in silence. It feels like a small natural drifting, but loneliness and social isolation are now recognized as serious risk factors for cognitive decline. For the aging brain, connection isn't a luxury, it's protection. Every real conversation is a full workout for your brain. You're listening, remembering, reading a face, choosing words, feeling emotion all at once. Isolation removes that workout and leaves the mind to go quiet and stiff. So reach out, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. And I know that after losses and changes, it can feel very hard indeed. Start small. One phone call a day, a short walk where you'll pass a neighbor, a standing coffee with one friend. Call the friend, join the group, say yes to the invitation. Eat with people rather than alone when you can. Don't wait to feel motivated first. With connection, the motivation usually arrives after you show up, not before. And connection comes in many forms. A weekly card game, a place of worship, a volunteer role, a class, even regular video calls with grandchildren if getting out is hard. Purpose matters too. Having a reason to rise in the morning, someone who needs you, something to contribute, keeps the mind engaged in a way little else can. It may feel like simple companionship, but you are truly feeding your brain and protecting it every time you connect. The third habit is shortchanging your sleep or ignoring the snoring that ruins it. Many older adults come to accept broken, shallow sleep as just part of aging and shrug off loud snoring as harmless. But sleep is not the brain's downtime, it is the brain's night shift. While you sleep deeply, your brain runs a remarkable cleaning process, flushing out the waste products that build up during the day, including the very proteins linked to dementia. Skimp on that deep sleep night after night, and the cleaning never fully finishes. The waste is left to accumulate. This is why chronic poor sleep is so strongly tied to memory trouble. And that snoring matters more than you think. Heavy snoring, gasping, or stopping breathing at night can be sleep apnea, which starves the brain of oxygen over and over through the night. If that sounds like you or your partner has watched you stop breathing, ask your doctor about a sleep test. Treating it can protect both your brain and your heart. Guard your sleep like the brain treatment it truly is. A consistent bedtime and wake time, a cool, dark room, morning light to set your body clock, and no screens or heavy meals late in the evening. If you nap, keep it short and early so it doesn't steal from your night. 7 to 8 hours of real, restful sleep is one of the most protective gifts you can give your brain. The fourth habit sits on your plate, living on ultra-processed food and sugar. The packaged snacks, the sugary treats, the fast convenience foods that creep in when cooking for one or two feels like too much effort. A steady diet of them appears to accelerate brain aging. Part of the reason ties back to blood sugar. A diet high in sugar and refined carbohydrates keeps your blood sugar and insulin swinging. And over time, that harms the small blood vessels feeding your brain and promotes the kind of inflammation that wears it down. Some researchers now describe the connection between blood sugar and brain decline in the strongest terms. The encouraging flip side is that the foods shown to protect the brain are real, ordinary foods: leafy greens, berries, fish, nuts, olive oil, beans, and whole grains. Researchers even built an eating pattern around exactly these foods, designed with the brain in mind, and those who follow it closely tend to stay sharper as they age. You don't have to be perfect. Simple swaps move you in the right direction. Berries instead of candy, nuts instead of chips, fish once or twice a week, greens on the plate most days. You don't need an exotic diet. Shift the balance toward real, colorful food and away from the packaged and the sugary, and you're protecting the vessels and the tissue your memory depends on. Stay hydrated as well, since even mild dehydration clouds thinking, and go easy on alcohol, which wears on the aging brain more than most people admit. What's good for your heart, it turns out, is almost always good for your brain. The two rise and fall together. The fifth habit is letting your mind coast. And here's where that television question comes in. There is nothing wrong with enjoying your programs, but when the TV becomes the whole day, hours upon hours of passive watching with the mind idling in neutral, your brain stops being challenged. And a brain that is never challenged slowly loses the connections it isn't using. The old phrase is exactly right. Use it or lose it. Cognitive reserve, that savings account we talked about, is built by active engagement, not by passive drifting. The brain has to do the work, not merely receive it. That's the difference between watching a quiz show and actually playing along, between hearing a story and telling one. The good news is that almost anything that makes you think counts as a deposit. Reading, puzzles and crosswords, cards and board games, learning something genuinely new, a language, an instrument, a craft, a skill. Because novelty is what forces the brain to build. Even better, combine it with people and movement, and you stack the benefits. So notice how many hours slip by in passive watching, and trade some of them for something that makes your mind work. The richest activities blend three things at once: a challenge, other people, and a bit of movement, like a dance class, a walking group with friends, or a hands-on hobby you share with others. Your brain grows toward whatever you ask of it and fades from whatever you stop asking. The sixth habit is staying stressed and never truly unwinding. Chronic stress and worry aren't only hard on your mood. They bathe your brain in stress hormones day after day, and over time, high levels of those hormones can damage the hippocampus, the very region at the center of your memory. Ongoing anxiety, unrelenting caregiving strain, grief that's never processed, a mind that never gets to rest, these quietly wear on the aging brain. And depression, which is common in older adults and often missed, is itself linked to memory problems and deserves real treatment, not silent suffering. So finding ways to truly unwind is not indulgence, it's brain care. A daily walk, prayer or meditation, time in nature, a hobby that absorbs you, laughter, and steady connection with people all lower that stress load. Even a few minutes a day of slow, deep breathing, or a walk outdoors, can lower that hormone load, and a steady daily routine gives an anxious mind something solid to rest on. If you feel you're drowning in worry or sadness, please tell your doctor or someone you trust. That, too, protects your mind. And here it is, the biggest one, the habit I saved for last, because it's the most overlooked risk of all, and wonderfully, one of the most fixable: ignoring hearing loss. This surprises almost everyone, so let me explain, because it's truly important. Hearing tends to fade so gradually after 60 that most people don't notice, or they silently adjust, turning the television up, nodding along when they didn't quite catch it, avoiding noisy restaurants, pulling back from conversations that have become too much work. It feels minor. It is not. Untreated hearing loss is now considered one of the largest single modifiable risk factors for cognitive decline in later life. There are two reasons. First, When your brain has to strain constantly just to make out sounds, it burns resources it should be spending on memory and thinking, leaving it exhausted and overworked. Second, and more powerfully, poor hearing slowly pushes you into that isolation we already talked about. You withdraw from conversations, from gatherings, from the very connection that protects your brain, because straining to hear is simply too tiring. So hearing loss drains your mind twice over. Many people resist hearing aids out of vanity, or a feeling that admitting it means surrendering to old age, but today's devices are small, discreet, and remarkably good. And what you're trading for, that little bit of pride, is your memory and your closeness to the people you love. The remarkable part is how treatable it is. Getting your hearing checked and using hearing aids if you need them may be one of the most protective things you can do for your aging brain, and research increasingly supports exactly that. The same logic reaches your eyes. Uncorrected vision loss also cuts you off from the world and is linked to faster decline, so keep your glasses current and your eye exams up to date. And there's a newer clue worth a mention. Poor oral health and gum disease have been tied to brain decline as well, so don't neglect your teeth and gums. But hearing is the big one. If you've been turning up the volume or leaning in and guessing, please get your hearing tested. It could protect far more than your ears. Put all of this together and it becomes a plan you can actually live by, what I call the sharp mind reset. Move your body most days, because a moving body feeds a sharp mind. Stay connected to people, treating every real conversation as the brain workout it is. Guard your sleep fiercely and get your snoring checked so your brain can do its nightly cleaning. Feed your brain real, colorful food and ease off the sugar and the packaged stuff. Challenge your mind daily with something new instead of letting it coast in front of the screen. Find real ways to lower your stress and treat low mood rather than enduring it. And get your hearing and your vision checked and corrected, because staying connected to the world keeps the brain alive. Move, connect, sleep, feed, challenge, calm, and hear. 7 everyday habits, each one a deposit back into that account, and together a powerful shield for the mind you're trying to protect. Picture what it looks like on an ordinary day. A morning walk out in the daylight, a real breakfast with berries or greens, a phone call or visit that makes you laugh, an afternoon on a puzzle or something new instead of lost in the television, a few slow breaths when worry rises, and your hearing aids in so you don't miss a single word of it. None of that is extraordinary, and that is exactly the point. A protected brain is built from the ordinary, done consistently. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Pick one habit this week, add another the next, and let them build on each other. And remember the steady foundations beneath all of them. Keep your blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol in check, because healthy vessels mean a healthy brain, and don't smoke, which harms both at once. Let me speak to you plainly for a moment, not as someone making a video, but as a doctor who has watched families walk through the fear of a fading mind, and who has also watched how much can be protected. I've sat with people convinced their forgetfulness was the beginning of the end, only to find it was a thyroid problem, or a vitamin deficiency, or exhaustion, or grief, things we could actually treat. And I've watched others, frightened by a parent's diagnosis, take these ordinary habits seriously in their 60s and 70s and stay sharp, engaged, and themselves for years and years. What made the difference was rarely luck alone. It was small, daily choices, a walk taken, a friend called, a hearing aid finally worn, a book opened instead of a screen, made long before there was any crisis. I think of one woman who, after her husband passed, had gone silent and withdrawn, her memory slipping month by month. What she needed most turned out not to be a pill, but a community, a purpose, and her hearing corrected. And slowly, she came back to herself. I won't promise you that habits defeat every disease, because they don't, and some decline comes despite our very best efforts. You deserve honesty over false comfort. But I will tell you this, plainly and with confidence. Your brain is far more responsive to how you live than you have ever been led to believe, at every age, including this one. The account can still grow. The connections can still form. And the difference between the people who kept their minds vivid and those who faded faster was often nothing more than these ordinary, repeatable habits, begun before they felt urgent. You can make one deposit today: a walk, a call, a puzzle, a hearing test booked. It doesn't have to be big. It only has to be real and repeated tomorrow. Not next year, not after the next frightening moment of forgetting, today. That's how it begins, and it is never too late to start. So let's bring it together. The forgetfulness you fear is not simply your fate, and it is not all in your genes. Certain everyday habits may be aging your brain faster: sitting too much, withdrawing from people, shortchanging your sleep, living on processed food and sugar, letting your mind coast in front of the screen, staying chronically stressed, and, the biggest and most overlooked of all, ignoring hearing loss. And the answer is the sharp mind reset. Move, connect, sleep, feed, challenge, calm, and hear, all resting on healthy blood pressure, blood sugar, and a life without smoking. If this gave you hope and something you can actually use, tap like. It helps this reach other people over 60 who are quietly worried about their memory and think there's nothing they can do. And subscribe, because every week I share one more honest, practical way to protect your body and mind as you age. And I read the comments, so tell me, how many hours of television did you type earlier, and which one of these habits will you change first? Say it out loud, because the people who name their first step are far more likely to take it, and you may give someone else the nudge they needed. If it helped, share it with someone you love who worries about their memory, or who's been turning the TV up and pulling away. This might be the video that helps them protect the mind that holds all your shared memories. Take care of yourself and take care of that remarkable brain. One last thing. Everything here is general educational information based on current understanding and years of clinical experience. It is not personalized medical advice, and it cannot diagnose or prevent any disease. If you or a loved one notice memory problems that interfere with daily life, changes in personality or judgment, or getting lost in familiar places, please see a doctor. Many causes are treatable, and early evaluation matters. That isn't just a legal disclaimer, it's sincere advice from Dr. Hale, someone who would very much like you, sharp, engaged, and fully yourself for many years to come. Take care of yourself, and today, make one deposit into that account: a walk, a call, or a hearing test.